Hey folks, it is July something. My head is a little messed up on days and dates right now. We had a little bit of a false start. That was my fault about 10 minutes ago. But now we are ready for the real deal. What a whirlwind. We're dropping this live session in an otherwise kind of a funky date here in July. Normally we're on Thursdays, we're on Tuesday. Net, this is the only evening that was available. I just got back from being gone about 3 weeks. I did a great trip to Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico. My 17-year-old son went along with the rest of the Boy Scout troop. There were 12 of us, 3 adults and 9 boys. We hiked 80 miles in 11 days. Spent a lot of time at 8,000 plus feet of elevation. Got as high as 12,004 for those of you who are Philmont veterans out there, alumni. That was at the top of Mount Baldy. What a great trip. I want to do more backpacking. We got to day 5 or 6, 7, and there was no way I was ready to be done at day 11. It was such a blast. So one of the things I did out there is I picked up these sticks. The one on the way bottom is a ponderosa pine root, and these are pieces of western red cedar that were out there. So what I want to do is make pens out of the small ones and make knife handles out of the big one. And I'll give the knives will be for my son and I, the pens I'll do for myself, the other adult leaders, and my kid. So what I did here in order to protect this is I've poured Pentacryl, if I get this facing the right way, I poured Pentacryl over them. Pentacryl is a wonderful, I kind of hate to say preservative. What I use this for normally is when I turn green bowls. And what happens is that when wood dries, the wood cell shrinks and the cell wall collapses, and ultimately that's what causes cracks in wood. So what Pentacryl does is it soaks into the material and it stiffens up the cell wall so that when the water leaves, the cell wall is still rigid and it doesn't collapse and you don't get cracking. So to protect my blanks, I put them in the Ziploc bag, which is apparently leaking. And I poured the Pentacryl over the top. Now what's cool is that that'll absorb for some period of time. I'll probably leave it for 3 days or so. Whatever Pentacryl is left, I can just pour back in the bottle and use it for the next project. So it's, again, Pentacryl is the product. I'm not trying to do an ad. It's just an amazing product to work with. And it'll be really cool once they come out of the Pentacryl and I let them dry from that and then start working with this stuff. It's going to be really cool heirloom material to turn these into pens and knife handles. So I'm really excited about that. Now they're going to sit for at least 4 days because, like I said, there's quite a whirlwind going on here. I leave tomorrow for Las Vegas for AWFS. Never remember what that stands for, but it's a big woodworking show in Las Vegas. This is the opportunity where a lot of manufacturers start rolling out their new products and getting them ready for the fall woodworking season. So this is going to be cool. Honestly, I can't stand Vegas. When I leave there, I feel like I can't take enough showers. However, the woodworking show part is going to be really cool. A lot of people I'm anxious to see out there. So dark 30 tomorrow on a plane flying to Vegas, back in 4 days or something like that. All right, Krista, I have gibbered and jabbered. Do we have questions?
We have a lot of questions. Gary would like to know, what is more important to have in a small garage workshop? A planer, a router, a drill press, or a table saw?
Table saw. So very few woodworkers will argue that a table saw is really the heart of a shop. So it's pretty hard, table saw or track saw, you got to have some way to machine pieces. So that's a great starting point.
Okay. Thanks so much, George. Bobby would like to know, what is the best method for finishing cherry, like maybe a cherry box? He's got no experience with the wood and heard it's a bit peculiar to work with in the finish side.
Well, I would disagree. I think cherry is pretty close grained, tight pores, and finishes pretty well. If you're not comfortable with polyurethane or lacquer oils like Watco Danish oil, boiled linseed oil, tung oil, those are so easy to apply. Wipe them on, give it like a minute, wipe off any excess, and very, very user-friendly, very, very easy to work with. So oil, just any wood, the Danish oil products are a great way to go. Very easy to work with.
All right, thanks, George. Troy would like to know, what are the key features to look for when purchasing a planer in the $2,000 to $3,000 range?
My planer costs $400, so I'm not, I don't know. You're gonna, capacity, I guess, helical knives, if you can do it. There's a significant increase in surface finish if you have helical knives instead of straight knives. Other than that, you're gonna get, at that kind of price point, you're gonna be in, I don't know, at least a 3 horsepower range, maybe a 5. Power is good, once you take more material off. So it's a little out of my ken. I don't own a planer that big, so I'm not sure what else to tell you.
All right. Jason would like to know, no, Jason has to say he's loving the new live feed.
Oh, good.
And is there a particular blade you prefer when ripping mahogany?
Oh, I don't really pick my blades by wood, but I pick them by doing. So let's see, you stay here, but get ready to zoom. And I'm gonna probably be right back, as far as I can tell.
Well, that's okay. I'll just thank Tightbond for sponsoring our video tonight. So thanks, Tightbond.
So here's the thing with blade selection, and I wish I had a standy-uppy thing here, but let's start on the red one, Krista. And I'm going to point with my finger because I neglected to put a pencil in my pocket. This is a ripping blade, so we've got a couple things going on here. The gullets, the valleys between the teeth, are quite large, and the teeth themselves lean forward into the cut. So a couple things. The more hook angle we have, they're in the top drawer of the small cabinet over there. Turn left, next to the first aid box. Chris is getting a pencil while I'm doing this. So the more aggressively the tooth leans forward, the more aggressively it's going to cut. So this, thank you. So this is probably something like a 12-degree hook angle, 12-degree positive. It's leaning in. Big gullet, because when we do rip cuts, you get big shavings, big chips, and we need a big gullet to carry that stuff out of the cut. So I'll see if I can just move blades. Are you set? Still there then?
Yeah, we're all right.
A blade like this is more of a crosscut blade or a sheet stock blade. So if you look at it, the teeth are quite a bit smaller. This is a 60 or 80 tooth blade. I'm trying to look quickly here. It's an 80 tooth blade. The blade I just showed you, I think, was a 24 tooth. And look at the teeth are standing more straight up and down. The gullets are smaller. We never want to use a blade like this and try to rip with it. It's going to go really bad, really fast. It's going to overheat because the gullets are so small it can't carry the waste out of the cut. So it's not, like I said, it's not wood by wood. It's not, mahogany, I don't care. But for ripping, I want a 24 to 40 tooth blade. That's a rip blade. And then the 60 to 80 teeth blades are cross-cut and sheet cut.
All right, thanks, George. Pat is just starting to work handles for pizza cutters and such. Really new skill for Pat. Do you have any tips on how to do that?
Well, I don't know. Let's why don't you spin toward the lathe and let's run a tool for there. There happens to be a spindle on there, so that works out. I think the spindle is still on there from the last live, maybe. So, Pat, what are you using? If you're actually watching here, are you using carbide tools? Are you using high-speed steel chisels? What's the deal? It would help to know that. And is there enough light here, or does it seem dark?
I don't know. Can you flip that light on?
Well, it's a halogen, so it gets a little funky. The color gets a little funky under the halogens typically. But see if that makes it more better or worse.
Yeah, well, I think that's a little better.
All right, I don't know. So, I mean, if you're turning pizza handles, spindle turning, I usually do them with a chuck, like this. And the benefit to doing that kind of stuff with a 4-jaw chuck is the end out here can be unsupported. So as a result, let's see, I think what I normally do is I do the pizza cutter end and I drill it and put the insert in and then turn it around. And then when that end is in the chuck, it allows me to form the curve or ball on the end of the handle. So let's, I don't know, let me grab a chisel. I'm just gonna grab some carbides because they're laying right here. A couple of easy wood chisels. Basically a scraping technique. And you want your tool rest to be in a position where the tip of the tool is on the center line of the spindle. So you got to adjust the height of the tool rest until you're in that position. I'm a little high right here, where my tool rest is. And then tool rest position, that's just a safety thing. We want to be as close as you can be to the spindle without touching it. Never more than a 1/2 inch away, because we're trying to keep that gap small so your fingers can't get caught in there. Small turning, like a pizza handle. We've got turning charts on the GOA site, speed charts. You're going to run at a fairly high RPM. And then just in general turning techniques, I'm right hand dominant. So left hand is on the chisel, right hand on the handle. And really I'm still at a roughing stage here. This has still got a flat spot. That's how I know. Cut a little more aggressively to speed through this. A few more RPM now that it's roughed out. Once it's roughed, so now at this point it's round, then you can start your handle shaping. And one thing there to remember is you always want to cut downhill. So if I want a big hollow here for my hand to fit into, then I'm going to cut from the left down toward the bottom, and then from the right down toward the bottom. And that's what I mean by cutting downhill. High spot, the low spot, high spot, the low spot. And that, just with the grain of the wood, that'll give you the best possible surface. So I don't know, impromptu turning lesson there. I don't know. I don't even know what we're turning here today. Maple, I think. All right, fire away.
All right. Dennis would like to know, is the jet oscillating drum sander worth the extra cost?
All right, so I'm assuming by drum sander you mean like a surface sander, not a spindle sander. So what I think we're talking about here is a drum sander where the drum is horizontal like a planer, and in addition to spinning, it oscillates left and right. So yes, I think it is, because what happens is with the abrasive particles on the drum, when we're only turning this way and we're feeding our material, then you're going to get some sanding lines in your surface because the abrasive is always in the same position relative to your piece. If you're feeding your piece and the drum is doing this, and it's doing this, like patting its head and rubbing its stomach at the same time, then you're going to get, from the same grit, you're going to get a finer surface because we're not keeping those, we don't have those abrasive particles in the same line all the time. So yeah, I think, I don't own one, but I've seen them. And I just, conceptually, I think it's worth the extra dough.
Okay. So Gregory just has a comment. Sounds like you loved the Philmont trip. Great experience. Although I'm an Eagle Scout, I never had the chance to go there.
Well, here's what makes this very cool for me, if I can say this without starting to cry. I was there in 1976, so I was 16 years old, and the guy who was the scoutmaster, that's just crap in my throat, I'm really not crying yet. The guy who was the scoutmaster of the troop I was with, he was scoutmaster for 32 years of that troop. Good friend of my dad's. My dad died when I was real young, so George Johnson became my substitute dad. So I was trying to do the math when I was on this trip, and I think when I was 16, George Johnson was about my age, was about 56, and we did that trip in 1976. So now, lo these many years, 41 years later, my kid was 17 and I'm 56. So it was just a very cool circle or cycle to be able to go back to Philmont and do that with my kid. And I did. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I'm also an Eagle, and my kid is, in fact, part of his Eagle service project is on the CNC machine over here as we speak.
Okay, thanks, George. So someone would like to know, going back to the material that you picked up in New Mexico, how long do you let them dry after you take them out of that bag?
Oh, a couple of days, and it'll depend. If you Google Pentacryl, and the website it's on is not pentacryl.com, it's some other name, but if you Google Pentacryl, you'll find it. And they've got charts on there. And what's more important really than how long it dries is how long it takes to saturate. And that's a function of thickness, size. If you can immerse it like I've done here, that's the most effective way to get complete saturation of the material. And the other way I'll do it is if I've got a green wood bowl, in fact, I think I did it on this. I think I used it on this one. This is apple, I think. As I was turning, I brushed on the Pentacryl. And then would turn a little more, brush them on, turn a little more, brush them on. But the bottom line is it's got to get to the wood cells in order to work. So in the case of those small pieces, I think if they're out of that bag for a day or two, they're going to be fine.
Okay, guess what time it is?
For a commercial?
It's time for a commercial. So
Is that you or me?
That would be me. So all of our lovely return viewers, you can probably go ahead and quote this right along with me, and then your spouses and partners will think you're, I don't know, losing it or watching too much of George. But anyways, we're here today.
There's no such thing.
We're here today with George Vondriska, the managing editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. If you haven't done so already, go out to the website, WWGOA.com. Sign up for the free newsletter. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we would like to thank Titebond for sponsoring the video today.
Who I'll be meeting with in Las Vegas and like tomorrow, I think, maybe. I can't remember when that meeting is. But
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Mike is watching from Australia, and he would like to know which wood is the best for pens and handles there. So I don't know if he's looking for it.
Jara.
Okay.
If you can get Jara, that's wonderful. Eucalyptus, gum. You want close-grained materials. So if there are other woods that you know of that are like that, I've worked with Kauri, which came out of New Zealand. That would be okay, but it's a little soft. So Jara and eucalyptus would be pretty good choices.
Okay. John would like to know, have you ever thought of upgrading your table saw or any tools to digital readouts? If so, which ones? And have you actually upgraded any?
The table saw, I'm okay with using the cursor on the table saw. I want you to swing, if you swing this way. I'm fixing to put this on my planer. This is a digital readout that'll go on my DeWalt planer, and I love this because with this particular product, it's a Wixie product, when you calibrate this and zero it, and then you run material through, and this says 0.745, it really is 0.745. So I love that level of accuracy in the planer, because a lot of times, either with my planer or my surface sander, I am trying to hit a very specific thickness. So that's a digital add-on for the planer. And then same company, this is a digital readout for the drill press. And I like this idea too. Same concept. Once we zero this, it's going to tell me depth of drill. And it can be a little funky. You know, it's fairly easy to set depth of plunge on a plunge router and get it exactly right. Drill press, a little harder to do. So these are two, I just need the time to put them on. But those are two digital upgrades. I'm really looking forward to doing it.
Okay, thanks, George. Mark would like to know, George, what's the best product to protect cast iron table saws, lubricate gears, clean bandsaw wheels, etc.?
What was so we've got a variety. I kind of tuned out at protect, and I thought that was the question.
What's the best product to protect cast iron table saws, lubricate gears, clean bandsaw wheels, etc.?
All right, so.
Did he get you something?
Well, if you want to look in that, the cabinet that's got the doors open, Glide Coat would be the product you're looking for. So while Chris is looking for that aerosol can, bandsaw tires I clean with mineral spirits. You need a solvent to get the sap and the stuff off of there, but you don't want too strong a solvent because you'll start to dissolve. Thank you. You'll start to dissolve the tires. So mineral spirits works fine for that. All the cast iron surfaces in my product get Glide Coat, formerly called Top Coat. It's an aerosol product. It sprays on wet, obviously. It flashes almost instantly, leaves a little white residue behind, then you buff that out with a rag or a paper towel, and it does a great job. I have also been using this same stuff like on the trunnions of my table saw. I'm not 100% sure it's designed for that, but it seems to work okay. I like the fact that, boy, especially in the guts of a table saw, you got to have something dry. Otherwise, the sawdust is just going to stick to it. So I've had good success using that same Glide Coat on the trunnions of the table saw.
Okay. Daryl is watching from Thailand.
That's cool.
Yep.
That's maybe a first.
Really likes your stuff.
Thank you, Daryl.
Is attempting to make his own workshop, but he has some problems, right? So his tools are expensive, or, and I'm quoting, crap. Finding good quality wood is a problem. Even the plywood is poor quality. It also seems that standards in, a half an inch there, where most of the projects on YouTube are 3/4 of an inch. So do you have any advice on using, half inch, their standard, instead of 3/4 inch when he's making projects?
Boy, there's like 8 billion it depends. I make all my cabinets out of 3/4 material. I know on a commercial basis, companies that kick them out and put them in home centers, a lot of them use half inch, so it's not necessarily bad. I think it's just not as good. It's going to depend so much on the project. If it's a small thing, half inch is going to be fine. If it's a bigger scale bookcase and you're stuck with half inch, maybe you have to double it up so you end up with 1 inch material, and then you're overkill compared to 3/4, but better to be overkill than underkill. So case by case, maybe that's a consideration, is to double up the thickness as needed so that you have a little bit more rigidity.
Right.
That would be your cue.
I know, I'm managing
Yeah, I know
lots of
you're
stuff.
multitasking there.
Yeah, and I'm having some problems with both my phone and my iPad, like streaming the questions, even though Sam says we have a lot, so.
What the logistics here is that Sam is offsite mediating the questions, then in turn feeding them through a few electronic devices toward Krista. So that's when there's moments of silence, it's just because the worldwide interwebs and stuff are still catching up with what we're doing. So
That's right, they're still catching up. So maybe, I don't know.
well, if we have a ton of questions, how can we be,
We have a ton of questions that Sam has approved. They are not showing up on my devices.
okay.
So I have read the questions that are on the devices, but she says there's more. So she's going to send them to me another way. So. Okay, so why don't you demonstrate something maybe?
I'm going to demonstrate seeing if my iPad has enough battery.
Okay. This is the beauty of like live stuff, right?
Well, and when we get like 150 questions, I hate to stall out and be doing something we shouldn't be, but. I don't know why my iPad would be different than yours. The battery's going to crap out in a second, but we'll see what happens here.
Hey George, how long are you going to be in? I've got a question. How long are you going to be in Vegas?
I think it's 4 days.
Okay.
And not in a booth. So I've had that question a couple times, like, can you find me at the show? Maybe, if like we stumble across each other. So, hang on, I'm getting there.
Well, we have a question here.
Okay.
Okay. We've got a viewer from Georgia. I'm so sorry about this technical difficulty, guys. Is restoring an antique aluminum boat. The seats were originally mahogany. Any recommendations on which variety to use due to the exposure to sea salt and what finish?
Well, mahogany is a great natural exterior wood, naturally weather resistant. The wooden boat that I built, I used marine grade plywood. If you don't want to pony up for mahogany, you're not going to get that at a home center. You're going to have to find a specialty store, but that would certainly solve the problem because it's designed to live outdoors. So that would be a great choice.
Okay. And George, what is the difference in glue, hide, fish animal versus yellow versus PVA?
Well, I don't know about fish. Never worked with it. Hide glue in its most traditional form has to be heated in order to be used. So part of the restriction is that as soon as it starts to cool, it starts to grab. You've got to have the capability of heating it in order to work with it. Yellow glue, obviously you don't have to do that. So the benefit to hide glue is that if you ever have to take something apart, you can apply heat and maybe a little bit of steam again, and you can get the glue to relax. So a lot of luthiers, a lot of instrument makers use hide glue so that if a repair ever has to be done on a guitar, you could apply heat, a little bit of moisture, take the top of the guitar off, fix the brace that broke, put everything back together. Nobody will ever know you're in there. Yellow glue is a lot more user-friendly, of course. We don't have to heat it, brush it on. Different yellow glues have different tack times, how quickly they start to grab. So that's glue dependent. That's glue by glue within the yellow family. I don't know. I think that's the high points.
Okay. George, how often do you calibrate your table saw and other power tools?
Not too, unless something big happens. So like theoretically on the table saw, and I'm looking that way because that's where it lives, every time I change a blade, I should recalibrate the cursor on the fence. However, realistically, I found my blades are so close to being the same thickness, the same kerf, that I don't need to do that. So what else? Pointer on the jointer, same thing. You know, if I change knives, then I'll check that. 90 degrees on the miter saw, which lives right over there. I rarely change the angle on my miter saw. It's pretty rare for me to cut a 30 or a 45, anything but a 90. So I'm quite confident that when that's locked in at that detent, it is 90. If I go to do a 45 for a picture frame, I never take it to the detent and cut the final project. I take it to the detent for 45, and then I do a test cut or two and check that. So I guess big picture, unless something sort of calamitous happens or there's a major change, I'm not recalibrating because you shouldn't need to. But change knives in a joiner, move your miter saw a lot, then I would recheck it. Have a kickback on the table saw, I would recheck it.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, George.
Should I keep looking here, or do you have?
Nah, she's feeding them all to me, so that's fine. Just a little more tedious is all. Have you ever used Shopsmith? And what did you think about it?
Well, I have a long history with Shopsmith. It was just about my first job out of college was teaching for Shopsmith back when they had retail stores. So at one point in my life, I owned 2 Shopsmiths, maybe 3. early in my woodworking, I was working in a barely one-car garage. It was like 10 by 15. Had my Shopsmith in there. I made a lot of stuff. And I think the cool thing with the Shopsmith was I made a lot of Adirondack chairs. And it was a great example of what a Shopsmith offers, because I had to cut straight lines, I had to cut curves, I had to drill holes, I had to sand parts, I had to use a bandsaw, which also ran on the Shopsmith. So this was in 1986 or so. At that time, a Mark V was retailing for like $1,600. This was also a time when this sort of glut of tool imports wasn't happening. I remember in the Shopsmith stores, when we had the very first jet contractor saw on the floor available for sale, that was like huge. Because at that time it was like Delta made in the USA, that was kind of the only thing there was. And that jet, is, in my memory, is one of the first import table saws we ever saw. So at that point, in that time frame, to spend $1,600 on a Mark V that did all of this stuff was incredible. Real small footprint, a lot of tools for the money. My understanding today is that they're up around $3,500. With the tools in the marketplace today, that same $3,500, you could certainly buy a contractor saw, a benchtop drill press, a mini lathe. So Shopsmith certainly had its day, and I'm not saying its day isn't still today. It's still a good tool for a lot of people. But like that, the proportion of the price compared to buying independent tools isn't the big benefit today that it was when I worked with them 30 years ago.
All right, thanks, George.
But they're cool. They're cool tools.
All right. Sean says, I'm a hobbyist and looking for a drill press.
That's boring.
I don't usually do large projects, but since I have the room, I'd like a floor model. Do you have a suggestion for a drill press that would be good to start out with, or should I go the route of searching for an old used drill press?
Yeah, I would poke around. I mean, I own a drill press, so I'm a statistic of one. I haven't tool tested drill presses, and that's what you really need if you're really shopping and you want to know features and that kind of stuff, and compare. The thing to do is to like pick a price point. I'm willing to spend whatever, $700 on a drill press, and then look for, there are woodworking magazines that will do, you know, Wood is a great example. Wood Magazine is a great example. They do tool tests all the time. So it's not unlikely that they've done a tool test on drill presses. At GOA, we don't do tool tests. So look for a tool test that a magazine did on drill presses and then go from there.
Okay. We have a viewer who would like to know, is white ash suitable for turning a bowl?
Sure.
Okay.
Almost anything is suitable for a bowl. I was just at a event in Oklahoma, the Video Woodworkers event, and Braxton turned a bowl out of OSB. It was pretty cool looking. I think Braxton turned it. Hopefully I'm not getting that wrong. Somebody turned a bowl out of OSB.
Bill would like to know, how tight should the blade on a bandsaw be?
Well, I've got a huge blade in there now, but let's go have a look. And the standard test may work.
I'm quite sure we've answered this in the past.
Yeah.
So it's important to note that if you're kind of a new viewer, these are all archived. So you can go back to the WWGOA.com and in the search bar, I think just type in live, and they're all archived, so you can catch up on any ones you may have missed.
And anything that was any live in about the last year, one of the things I do when you go off and go to bed, I go in my office here and keep working. And one of the things I do is timestamp them so that you don't have to just scrub through 60 minutes of blah, blah, blah. You can look at the timestamps and see what we talked about and where in the hour that was. So that helps a lot. So if you can come in on the blade, Kristen. A good general rule of thumb, notice that the bandsaw is unplugified. A good general rule of thumb with bandsaw blade tension is when I press with about 6 inches of blade exposed, when I press here, about an 1/8 inch of deflection. Now, I know this is pretty subjective because if I press really hard, I can get that to go more than 1/8 of an inch. And if I barely touch it, it's not going to move. So it is subjective, but the other thing to look for, do this first. And then when you start cutting, one symptom of being under-tensioned, of having tension deficit, is when you try to follow your line, the blade wanders. It doesn't want to follow. You could zoom back out. Instead of following the line, it kind of wanders all over the place. And what's happening is that when you push on the front, because it doesn't have enough tension, the blade is kind of turning away from the cut. And that tells you don't have too much. If there's a really loud bang and you break the blade, you probably had too much tension on it. So it's better to start low and dial up until you get where you're happy with the blade.
All right, thank you, George. Wayne would like to know, which is safer, a faceplate or a worm screw for bowl turning?
Well, they're both safe. They just have completely different applications. And I don't, if you do a commercial, I think I can grab the worm screw and show people what that is.
Okay, are we coming to the lathe?
Sure.
Okay. Let's just turn around to the lathe, and that way I can, get the sponsor thing here. So we are thanking Titebond for sponsoring our live, the Pros Advantage. They make Titebond 1, 2, and 3, and I'm sure other products, but George loves Titebond. And we are here with George Vondriska, Managing Editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. If you don't do so already, go out to WWGOA.com and sign up for the free newsletter. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
All right, so this is a worm screw.
Can you maybe hold out to the side or set it? Thank you, that's better.
And the way that works is we mount it in something. So in this case, in a 4-jaw chuck. If I can do all this without dropping it. Normally I'd have the chuck on the lathe when I'm doing this. So then with our bowl blank, I drill a hole smaller than this, thread it onto there, and then start turning the back side of the bowl. And in my case, what I'm going to do is that worm screw is holding it just enough that I can turn the back side, create a recess that these jaws can go into, and then I flip everything around and hollow the inside. So it has a good hold. It's a little bit tenuous, especially in green wood, because green wood is softer than dry wood. But I've used these on pretty significantly sized bowl blanks and had great luck. What I like about them is it's so darn fast. It's such an easy way to get material onto the lathe and get turning, just like that. So I'd say pretty interchangeable with a faceplate, but a faceplate's going to let you cut more aggressively if you're then, I don't know what your end game is there though. Like, what I don't want is screws from a faceplate screw in the bottom of my bowl. So all the bowls I do these days are on a 4-jaw chuck. So because of that, the worm screw is kind of a companion. It is a companion to the 4-jaw chuck. So I just have them play nice together, and that's how I do stuff.
All right, thanks, George. We have a viewer who would like to know, is there a good way to keep hand planes and similar tools from developing surface rust?
Well, so back to the same stuff. The glide coat that I showed earlier could go on hand planes. A lot of people, I'm not much of a hand tool guy, but I think people also wax their planes with just plain old Johnson Carnauba wax, paste wax. Get it at a home center.
Okay. Jason would like to know, how would you safely mount and turn a 6-inch deep by 14-inch radius cylinder with even thickness wall throughout? Is there something other than hand tools that I can slowly crank inside and outside the cylinder? Thank you.
14, say the numbers again.
6-inch by 14-inch, the 14-inch radius.
14-inch radius?
Well, it says 6-inch deep by 14-inch radius cylinder with even thickness wall.
So a 14-inch radius is a 28-inch diameter, which is way bigger than this lathe could take. So yeah, I don't know, I would just turn that like a bowl. If it's 6 inches deep and you got a lathe big enough to do 28 inches in diameter, I would use conventional bowl chisels and do it that way.
And how would he safely mount it?
A 4-jaw chuck would be fine. There's jaws and there's jaws. So there's like 3 different chucks. Well, these two are pretty similar, those two. So these jaws, when you buy a chuck and you determine which chuck you're going to buy, this particular model will say, the manufacturer will tell you, these jaws are safe for bowls up to so many inches in diameter. And then if you look at those jaws, and then if you look at Uber jaws, so clearly this chuck, which is a bigger gizmo, is going to allow you to turn larger bowls than this chuck. So when you buy your chuck, that's one of the things that you want to know is what's the top end diameter bowl that I could do on this thing.
Okay, question about bandsaws. Do you release the
Never.
tension? Okay.
Well, not never. When I lived in Africa for 3 years and I was leaving my bandsaw here, then I took the blade and the tension off. But somebody said when I was leaving for Philmont and I was going to be gone for 18 days, somebody on Instagram said, and don't forget to release no, I don't bother.
Okay. Dan is working on a sweetheart chair from Italy. It was broken. He epoxied it back together and now has mahogany putty to fine coat the repair. Right track? Wrong track?
No idea.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what the problem is. Like, what's the repair that you're trying to do? I don't know.
Okay.
So
Dan, if you're still watching, throw on some more info for us. All right. Neil wants to know, how important is it to use pocket screws with Craig jig holes if the holes will not be seen? Can I use a regular flush top tapered bottom screw instead?
no, because they'll crack. So the what is called a flathead wood screw. Let me grab one, and then we'll give Krista the zooming challenge.
Are we going to go back to the table where we'll see it better?
Sure, that's a
Good.
smirky egg. So this will be your ending point.
You want me to be on the point?
On the whole screw.
I was just making a little joke.
Okay. This screw is a conventional flathead wood screw. So when we say flathead, it's a little confusing because it's actually got this bugle shape to it. This screw is a Craig pocket hole screw. Same length, 1.5 inches. The reason that we want this, there's a couple things going on here. One, the Craig screw has a thread cutting tip on it. So when you drive this, we're pre-drilling the part that the screw is going in, but we don't have to pre-drill the mating piece because that thread cutting tip is going to cut its own path. The bigger deal is that this is a panhead screw, so when this hits the bottom of the screw pocket, that flat is just going to seat against the bottom of the pocket. With this style of screw, with a flathead screw, and this one does happen to also have a thread cutting tip, but with a flathead screw like this is a wedge, this shape right here. So when this hits the bottom of the screw pocket, especially in a hardwood, you're almost certainly going to split the end grain because you're driving a wedge into the screw pocket. So it's not about whether you can see it or not, it's really about using the right fastener for the work.
All right. Wayne from Texas has an Excalibur scroll saw. The surface of the plate seems to be painted and a spot is peeling. Should I remove the paint on the entire surface or just live with the spot?
I don't know. If it's a problem, and I'm not much of a scroll saw guy. I'm not a scroll saw guy. I own one, and mine, that's weird because mine's an Excalibur, but it's not painted. It's an aluminum table. I'm looking at it. if the paint chip is like causing your material to go kind of kerflooey because you're riding over a low spot or whatever, then I would take all the paint off.
Cool. All right, Joe is a beginning woodworker. He's got a Shopsmith Mark V. Is that really right? Mark V? Wow, I feel like I'm on Star Trek. That I have inherited. But the table saw is too high. Thinking of purchasing a standalone table saw for a beginner. What do I need to look for in table saws that are kind of moderately priced?
Well, I can't help but recommend a saw stop because the brake technology is amazing and could save a finger. And then other than that, you got to pick your price point and how deep is your checkbook, how thick is your checkbook. Benchtop or job site or portable saws have really come a long way recently. I've used the Bosch and the DeWalt, can't remember model numbers, but pretty impressive performance. You can get them with their own stand. The Bosch stand has rollers on it, lets you move the thing around. I don't remember if the DeWalt one did or not, but if you want to be in the, I don't know, I'm gonna guess $500 to $700 range. Those job site saws are great to look at, but really with the table saw, my advice across the board is save your pennies, pony up for a saw stop. We never want accidents to happen, but they do. That's why they're called accidents, and that brake could save your hand. So with 15 minutes left, I got to ask, let us know where you're watching from. We already know Thailand and Australia. We heard that.
We got Portugal
earlier.
on there as well.
So yeah, do my favorite part and let us know where you're watching from.
Okay. Ross wants to know, what's your air filtration system?
For
the shop, I'm assuming.
Dust collection?
It says air filtration.
So I've got dust collectors on everything, or I've got dust collection connected to everything. And then I do have a jet. I'm looking that way up at the ceiling. I can't remember what model number it is. But I've got a jet air filter that's up here. And I really, with the dust collection I have on the tools, plus I use dust collection on portable tools whenever I can, it's pretty rare for me to run the air filter. It's more in a case when I have a class in here and then there's 6 people or 8 people who are working, especially in a bowl turning class. It's so hard to confine the dust on bowl turning. It's about the only time I run the air filter. So I own it, but with good dust collection on my tools, I actually don't use it all that often.
Gary wants you to fear not about Vegas. He says it's better than Atlantic City.
Well, I don't fear it. I just don't
Well, it says fear
care
not.
for it.
Fear not. All right. Chuck says, hi George. I have an old 16-inch bandsaw. Is it common to have to readjust the guide wheels every time I change blade size and width but same thickness?
Probably. Yeah, I don't think that's, if you're changing the size of the blade. I mean, pretty much every time I'm going to change blades, I back off all the guides anyway and start from scratch and then redo them. So in the end, I'm doing what you're doing on purpose anyway. So yeah, I think you're okay.
Okay. We have a viewer who says, I noticed when squaring my table saw blade to the miter slot, when I spin the blade, about half the blade touches my caliber and the other half doesn't. Why?
Your blade's maybe not flat. So it's not uncommon at all for a table saw blade to not be perfectly flat. So, and part of that will depend on whose blade, how much you spent. If you're running a $20 blade on your table saw, it probably almost certainly isn't flat. So it's just the plate of the blade. And then big picture, that's going to affect your quality of cut. So if it's not touching by a lot, you might want to consider ponying up for a little bit better blade that's going to have a flatter plate that gets the teeth tracking in a straighter line, so that when it's contacting the material, you're going to get less saw marks. You get a better cut.
Okay, thanks so much, George. So we have a number of questions on here that are actually technical questions about WWGOA site. So you guys, we do not do that.
Manage the site.
We don't manage the site. So if you have questions about the site, then I think on the website there's a contact us or support button or something, right? That they can.
Yeah, at the bottom of the site there should be a button they can click.
Yeah.
Then you want customer service. If it's I can't open my account, I can't get a video to play, I can't,
Right.
you want to go to customer service.
Right.
You have a woodworking question, I'm all in.
Right, and then so for some of you guys too, if you are signed up to get notifications through WWGOA about these and you're not happy with like when they send them out, again, contact them. I mean, you could also follow George on his Instagram or Facebook, because I know you send out reminders as well. So a lot of these technical questions we can't handle, sorry, but throw your woodworking at us, okay? Great. What are the advantages, disadvantages between 3 and 4 jaw chucks?
I've never seen a 3-jaw woodworking chuck myself yet, and I've probably, well, in this building, because of classes, I think I own 6 chucks. They're all 4-jaw. I guess, 4-jaw, I would think you got better surface area, better contact with the material. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I know a company, Technitool, Record, Easy Wood, that sells a 3-jaw chuck. So I don't have any experience with it.
Okay. Ron says, George, I'm building a liquor cabinet with solid walnut doors. Inside the doors will be framed shelves to hold bottles, glasses, etc. Hey, I would like this. Okay. What would be the best way to attach the framed shelves to the horizontal door panels without issues from expansion and contraction?
So I'm glad you're aware of this, because not everybody is. So wood expands across its width. So then if we take a piece like a cleat and fasten it across that width, rigidly fasten it, and inhibit that, you're going to get a crack in the material. So I think I know right where the thing I want is. Maybe, Bueller. I'm looking for a router bit that's a problem solver for this. And so much for the idea that I knew right where it was.
Well, this will come in handy for the next question.
Let me
If someone
look
asks
more.
us. You're gonna like it, you'll laugh.
Oh, there it is. All right. This is a CMT product. And you keep doing what you're doing. It is specifically a CMT 813601. So what happens with this is you use this in a plunge router, and you plunge in, then you move forward. And what happens is this part of the cutter is making a wide spot that the head of the screw will nest in. This part of the cutter is making a narrow spot that the shank of the screw goes through. So this allows you to route a slot so that when you put the screw through this and you tighten it, you snug it but not tighten it. And as a result, the screw will hold everything in place, but the head of the screw is going to slide back and forth in that elongated slot that you made. So it's a pretty cool problem solver. In this shop, because I own this, this is what I would do. You need some kind of elongated hole. Okay, you can zoom out. You need some kind of elongated hole or slot that'll allow the walnut panel to keep moving, even though the cleat is fastened to it.
All right, so this is the question I think maybe will make you laugh. Robert says, what is the logic for the layout of your shop? You seem to have different tools placed all around the shop
It's a mess.
with no specific order,
Well,
which is not true.
if you were the video crew, you would say it was a specific order. So because of what happens in this place, video crew is here every couple months shooting. I shoot video in between on my own. So this is not my optimal layout. This is, a big thing I talk about with laying out your shop is what's called a work triangle. A great work triangle would be jointer, workbench, table saw. So for me, jointer, workbench, table saw, they sort of form a triangle, but not the triangle I really want. But when the video crew is in here, there really needs to be a big open area in the middle, like where Krista is right now. And then they point this way and we do table saw stuff. They point this way, we do workbench stuff. They point this way, there's a miter saw. Point that way, there's a lathe. So it's, for me, it's a little bit more of a circular arrangement, and it's kerflooey. It's only because of video. If I was just doing woodworking in here, it would be a significantly different layout.
Okay. So it's about 5 till. So just throwing that out there. We have a question. It's a bit open-ended, but I think you can handle it. What 3 projects would you recommend for a beginner, an intermediate woodworker, and a pretty good woodworker?
So regardless of your level, the most important thing to do is find something that you want to make. So don't listen to anything I say about projects, except for this. Don't let anybody tell you, here's what you should make. Because if you do that, then I think especially at a beginner level, you're not going to have an interest in it. And what drives, a great thing that drives a lot of people is they see this thing. And here's this thing that I want. Here's this thing that I need. And I don't want to pay somebody else to build it. I don't want to pay IKEA to buy it. I don't want it, whatever. So that gets them engaged because they want it. They want to learn, what do I got to do to make that? What do I got to buy to make that? And that's what gets them moving forward. So there's no panacea project that I don't think that every beginner and every intermediate and every advanced should do. A great advanced project is a Chippendale dresser. I will probably never in my life make one because I have no interest in it. I've built a bunch of guitars, which I would say other woodworkers are probably never going to do because they don't have any interest in it. So pick something you really like and then chase it. It's like any goal. It's like any dream. If I give you my goal, it's going to be meaningless to you. But if it's your goal, you're going to be all over it.
All right, thanks, George. Now, I don't know if you wanted to, we don't have the next live on the calendar at this point?
Well, it should be the second Thursday in August at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
We should be, because it's weird. I actually don't travel for work in August, which is like the first time in 10 months I don't travel for work in some month. So we should be back on the regular schedule for August.
Okay, so the second Thursday in August, 7 p.m. Central Time. So, guys, throw it on your calendar now, and if something comes out, there'll be something comes up. And gals, yeah. And if something else comes up, we'll send out some reschedule.
Yeah, it should be fine.
Yep. And so, just in these last couple of minutes here, I was going to throw out where we got viewers from, okay?
Yep.
So, like all over the country, of course. Kuwait, which I think is brand new for us.
That's cool. That's a new one.
Yeah. We have Portugal, Australia, New Zealand, rural Colombia, and we have a viewer from Japan who is on his 3rd time viewing. So that is really cool. So I think maybe we should just wrap up at this point.
Sure. So in the Where's Waldo world, I've mentioned this. I'm leaving for Las Vegas tomorrow. AWFS there, but not in a booth. So if you're at the show, it's going to be dumb luck if we stumble across each other, but that'll be fun. And then no teaching gigs in August. In September, I'm teaching CNC classes at the Woodcraft store in Appleton, Wisconsin. And then come August, I'll talk about October. I've got some teaching gigs in October and November scheduled already. But that's so far out, I kind of don't want to think about it right now. So if you're in the Appleton area, which is eastern Wisconsin, check out the CNC classes there. I have no idea at this point what the sign-up status is. Other than that, maybe I'll see some of you in Las Vegas, which would be cool. And anything else?
Well, we want to thank Type Bond again.
We do want to thank Type Bond for underwriting this, and they make it free for you, which is cool. And other than that, I think we're done, and I will sit down and answer questions.
In just 1 second, a number of people want to know, what the heck, where's the stash?
It went away.
And why?
Well, sometimes things just got to go away. and I was getting ready for the backpacking trip to Philmont, and I cut my hair uber short, and then I cut this hair uber short. And now that it's off, I don't think I'm going to grow it back. So it's probably been, I had a beard for probably 25 years, and that came off maybe 3 years ago, this part. And I've probably had the mustache longer, 30 years, I don't know. So now I can go 30 years without it. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. All right. So I think that's it.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. See you wherever. Otherwise, see you here in August.
Thanks, guys.